Hello and welcome back to my Zelda Marathon ranking streams. So this is the second one, as the first time we did the ranking we had played through roughly enough games. 9 I think, or 8, and then we tried to play Zelda's Adventure and it just did not work no matter what I tried. So, we're on with our next set of games that I've got down here. You can see down here we got a bunch of more games to get through. I just didn't bother, but I put a lot of the version stuff and also all of the really small nitpicky games here, just because they're never going to be mentioned, and some more here are going to go there eventually. Depending on if I play like a HD version of Skyward Sword or not. I don't know. But anyway, let's go ahead and start with the Zelda games we have played since. First, to start off, we've got both of the Oracle games, Seasons and Ages. These two Game Boy games were quite surprising for their difficulty. I had to look up exactly what I felt about them at the end because they were very long time ago I played them. And the one thing I did remember very much from them is how annoyingly difficult they could be. And I say annoyingly because every time you died, you'd have to run back to the boss room of a dungeon, which would be just as obnoxious, right? It kind of gives me Silksong thoughts, ironically. Hey, Melk. So I can't say that these games are of A-tier standard. The problem with the Game Boy games generally was the fact that you had to constantly open menus in order to attach items to your toolbar, to use items basically. And that really did also slow things down. The end bosses, specifically from Seasons, I remember, were just absurdly difficult, and it might have been because I didn't get more heart containers or I didn't bring potions into the mix, but I still think that they were beyond challenging. But overall, I think they're both B-tier games, and I do think Seasons goes above Ages. Reason for that is because I felt like Ages had less of a reason to waste your time, but it still did it anyway. Essentially, with Seasons, they had this kind of structure where you do a dungeon, and then you go underground and get one of the season powers, like upgrade your season rod, which opened up your ability to change seasons whenever you wanted to, and open up pathways that you could not get to before. If I ever struggled from that, it was mainly because I didn't really recognize certain places that I could go due to the sprite work and whatnot. But I thought that that was much more enjoyable than a future and past from Ages. And specifically, Ages always felt like it was making up reasons to slow you down from getting to the next dungeon, where you had to do some obnoxious quest to get a raft, or you had to get all your shit stolen by lizard people. It just always felt like Seasons I was always building, while Ages was always smacking me down every time I built, right? So that's why Ages is getting lower than Seasons, but not by much. The two of the games are completely fine on their own, and I do think if they got remakes, the Season and Ages games could be really good. In fact, I really did enjoy the fact that the games linked to each other, in that you had to play both of them in order to get the full story, and if you play one, it'll constantly like ask you questions about the other game, and if you play the other game afterwards, you can like kind of go in between games, use what each game's telling you to find items. That's kind of cool. I'm not a fan of having to buy 2 games, but I like the ideas they had for it. How am I doing today? I'm somewhat alright. I'm a little tired. I was mainly just working on thumbnails today, and I just kind of was like, I don't know if I was going to stream. But if I'm just going to do the tier list today, I might as well do the tier list, right? It's not going to take that long. And I do need to do it now because I'm going to forget everything about some of these older games if I keep playing more games that take more time, you know? So yeah, I think that B tier is a good place for these games, because if they got remakes, I could definitely see people pushing them up into Link's Awakening amount of greatness, right? Anyway, here's a big one. Wind Waker. I'm gonna put it here for now, just because I don't want to have to keep carrying it and keeping my mouse held. Wind Waker is a big moment in Zelda history, I feel. It was the moment where they truly made Toon Link into a 3D character and really went hard into the Toon Link style of cell shading and cartoonifying the character. Where Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask and all the other 3D games were kind of like trying to hold some resemblance to reality. Wind Waker was much more whimsical in a sense. I did really enjoy Wind Waker, although I'm not sure if I'm going to say that I liked it as much as other people who have an excessive nostalgia for the game. The ending of the game really was amazing to me. Although, I do feel like maybe the Red Boat companion kind of wasn't really all that interesting to me. Tetra was cool as fuck, but she only shows up sometimes in the game and then gets completely removed as she gets turned into Princess Zelda, who immediately just becomes Princess as a personality, and that's it. And I just don't care about that at all. Although it was cool that she fought in the last battle, but hey, she's done that before, and it's kind of, you know, repetitive at that point. I didn't feel a strong connection to Zelda in this one. I felt a strong connection to Tetra, and they got rid of her, basically. Which I felt sucked. I think it would have been cool if we saw, like, Zelda at the end in, like, a Tetra style. I can't remember if she just went back to being Tetra. She probably did. But I still don't like that whole section, I guess. Also, I vaguely remember the game being a little too much of a fetch questy experience. Although, ultimately, it's a casual experience, and what I did get out of it, I genuinely really did enjoy. I think sailing on the seas is such a fun and just relaxing experience for Zelda. I also liked a lot of the characters that we got to see beyond the ones I mentioned, such as, like, Link's family, his little sister and his grandma, along with, I guess, all of the random alternate characters like Medley and stuff. They were all good, and I genuinely do think this is a great game. The question is it so great that it gets into S tier, or is it just great and it goes into A tier? Because I know I'm going to be pissing someone off if I don't put it into S tier, right? And honestly, another thing, the whole wind baton thing, I feel like in the original Wind Waker, that would have been kind of obnoxious, no? Having to constantly shift the wind so you could go to places you want to go to. Since I was playing the HD version, which, yeah, I was, technically I got the Swift Sail, which meant I didn't need to bother moving the wind around. But is that really a big deal? suppose another thing is that the music itself wasn't really that big of a point in this game. Specifically the baton. It comes off as like a big thing in the marketing and like box and the artwork, but the baton is so underused, I feel. Like it's not even really that big an item in the game. Either S tier or A tier. I'm genuinely stumped on whether or not it's really that great, or if it's just okay, an okay kind of great. For the first game that did bring in Toon Link, I think it deserves S tier. Because the 2D games have a kind of Toon Link, but this is the one that truly permeated a toonish Link that genuinely does look great, and it kind of gave an alternative style to Zelda that I think really set the mold of what that style should be. I think it's good. I think it deserves that point. Alright, next game, and you'll find that we're going to be seeing a lot of Toon Link in a lot of these games. Ironically, pretty much most of them. I think maybe like 6 out of the 10 that we were looking into. I don't know. But we've got Four Swords Adventures now. Man, this game, at the start, I was like, man, I should probably just play like the first part of this game and just say that I've played it and just move on. Because it's very blatantly clear that this game is intended for multiplayer experience. I've seen other people play this multiplayer, and it looks really enjoyable in a party sense. Having to deal with friends constantly fucking around and messing with you, stealing force gems, just becoming excessively competitive in a game that's basically all about cooperation, right? You're supposed to work together, but it really does just give you the ability to play Zelda with your friends. And honestly, I can see how people could really love this game. I think that in multiplayer sense, this game is a really good game. It probably could go into A tier or even S tier for some people, for how fun it could be. But for single player, it might be a B tier. This might be the, like, I got through the game and I did enjoy it. Damn, I thought you wanted to make a tier list in video format. I like doing it now because if I make a full-on tier list at one point, I want to have like all my thoughts into separate streams. Like on my VOD channel, I've got like the first part of my ranking videos, and that's like going over my thoughts of all of the first games that we played. And this is going from the Oracle games to where we are now, which is at the end of Spirit Tracks. And mainly like the Toon Link era, honestly, which is surprising. But yeah, Four Swords Adventures, I do feel like this game probably is B tier, and it might go over this Oracle games just for the sake that it... could I really do that though? Because the Four Swords Adventures is not like all the other Zelda games. You don't have really that strong a progression, more like you just have to get through an area where sure they give you items, but you lose all those items by the time you get to the next one. So it's less like a Legend of Zelda game. It's less like Metroid, and it's more just an arcade fighter game. I have to put it at the bottom of B tier because I genuinely think it's a fun game for multiplayer. Single player, it's okay, and that's that. So I have to put it here. It's not C tier, absolutely not. It's got value to it beyond being comical or silly, you know. So anyway, next game we're going to talk about another 2D game, Minish Cap. And yeah, in the promotional stuff, it's Toon Link, so even though it's 2D Link, and he doesn't really have a clear indication of being Toon Link in the game, this is Toon Link game. Just like Four Swords Adventures, even though that was also 2D characters. In this Minish Cap style, actually, surprisingly. But yeah, Minish Cap. Oh. I remember really enjoying the gimmick of Minish Cap. I like Elzo Elzla or something like that, I think his name is. Ezla's his name, right. That's the companion talking hat guy. I genuinely did enjoy this game for what it was. It was another Game Boy game, which does kind of put it in the ranks of Oracle of Seasons and Ages, but I think this is the upgrade of Seasons and Ages, in that it genuinely did do a great job of fully pushing the strength of the GBA. You still get that kind of stalling of having to constantly open up the menus, constantly changing your items, constantly having to look at maps. That, I mean, that does also technically happen with Ocarina of Time and stuff like that, but with only one button to use, or technically two buttons, but you're always going to have your sword on one of them, right? For items, it can get a little difficult with that. The final boss, I felt, was way too unfair, in sense that it's quite noticeable, right? It's noticeable now that every Zelda game has a final boss that has his normal form, a super form, and then maybe before the normal form there's like a mini, like a boss that's the minion or the side boss, the lackey boss, basically. So usually there's like kind of like a boss rush at the end of most Zelda games. This one's finale boss I did not like, more in the sense that it kind of demands that you spend a lot of your hearts fighting this really difficult boss and then doing it again, and then you have to like try and figure out how the boss works over and over again, and it can just get really obnoxious. If you're going to give me a boss that's going to be something that I have to figure out, don't make me have to fight the boss from the very freaking beginning, at the very start, like all freaking phases of the boss again. See, like, I remember vividly that one of the things you had to do is use the Staff of Flipping in order to flip the boss appendage into a position where you can go mini and get inside it and kill the things inside of it. There is no indication that that is what you need to do. It's just assumed that you'd figure that out, and I don't think anyone would really figure that out unless they just smash their head into a brick wall until it eventually they find it out through dumb luck. It's not a great final boss to me, as stylistic as it is. Although it does give some recognition to the Four Swords idea, especially since, you know, that's where the villain came from as well. I need to, hold on, let me look it up, what the villain's name was, because it's been freaking dragging through my brain. Four Swords Adventures final boss name. Not Ganon, it's Vati. Vati, right, there you go. And I did like that they didn't use Ganon again from Four Swords Adventures did, but it was nice to have a different enemy. So I'm going to put Minish Cap at the very end of A tier, mainly because GBA game that did its best with what it had, and I think it was the penultimate Game Boy Link game. Even though technically Link to the Past is up top 2, I just think that this game solidified the Oracle games in the best fashion. And the turning small and fighting an enemy by being small, making it into a boss. Like a normal enemy that you'd normally fight becomes a boss when you fight them small. I like all of that. That's really cool. The whole gimmick of smallness is cool. And I think that's the reason why it's high in this ranking. Although, I guess the strong thing I'd have to say is that mostly I'm going to find the 3D games to be more expansive, I guess. More to talk about. We do have another 3D game, Twilight Princess. Now, ease not the point, I'm just putting it down. Calm down, guys. Twilight Princess is really, 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 really good to me. Chief point being, I actually really cared about the story of Twilight Princess. It felt like the game constantly kept giving you direction, constantly pushed the plot forward, and it actually had a plot that I was following. Mainly because main character herself, Midna. Midna is just an excessively likable character. I shit you not. So far, Midna is absolutely my favorite Zelda character. And she's only... I know she shows up in Hyrule Warriors, but that's more of like a nostalgia game that like looks at all the previous games. And she's not like a main character. I'd say she's more like a character, a playable character. That's it. In this game, and only this game, Midna really has her story, and I love her. I love this game. I love Twilight Princess. And it's going in S tier at some place. The point I could see that people could say that this isn't a great game is that stylistically, it's got some kind of style to it, but the characters, a lot of the NPCs can look really rough. It was trying to do this weird thing where it was doing the Ocarina of Time kind of characters, but with realistic designs to them. Not realistic as in believable, but realistic as in using real life textures and filters and shit. But their heads were squashed, their faces were messed up. It was just hard to look at the characters and be like, oh, you know what? No, I'm not gonna like the character. It looks fucking weird. It's creepy. I don't like him. So yeah, I can get that. Especially since Ocarina of Time had, like, its own kind of charm, and it had the excuse of being on lower hardware. This game, I don't think it should have tried that. I don't think it should have taken the Ocarina of Time character styles and tried to just add humanistic textures to them and more polygons, because a lot of the characters do look weird. But beyond, that's just side characters, right? It doesn't really matter to me that much. And not all of them were bad. A lot of them do actually, in fact, have a lot of character to the way they look. Although, a lot of other characters look like fish people from how weird their eyes kind of stare off in different directions, and their mouths are like super, like, very prominent lips and stuff. I'm trying to point out the things that I understand that could be bad about Twilight Princess. To me, it's a non-problem. What else about Twilight Princess? The main goal of Link being that he needs to save the kids of the village after basically they get attacked and all of them get stolen. I like that that's the starting point, especially since it leads into Midna giving her desire, which is much more selfish and just like, you're my slave, you're gonna help me get my stuff back, and I can help you get those kids back, huh? Yeah, we'll help each other get what we want, but ultimately I'm the boss. I love how that's how the dynamic between the two start, and how it changes over time with Midna coming to really care about the light world when at the start she didn't really give a shit at all. And it's pretty sad that in the end she basically breaks the mirror so it could never be used again to threaten either the light or dark world by extension making it impossible for them to ever see each other. Although I do still dislike the new Midna form. I still prefer Gremlin Midna. Man, it's also got a lot of dark moments too, Twilight Princess. Personally, I didn't even dislike the wolf parts. I think this game's got a vibe. I think the game's got a great story. I think I love the characters. Specifically Midna. Like, Zen is alright as a villain, and it's kind of funny how he just kind of gets sidetracked by Ganondorf. Although, it's a shame that they made him into, like, a wacky villain instead of keeping his sinister aura. It's a question to me if it is better than Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time was such a classic, and it's hard to say. Ultimately, I want to put it at the top because I genuinely do care about the characters more. But there's something. Nah, you know what? Fuck it. I'm putting it at the top. There was a part of me that was thinking, you know what? I can also see how the bloom effects and the attempts at trying to make it look better than it actually is ultimately harm the experience, but I don't think so. I think this is a perfectly great game, and I genuinely think that Twilight Princess is, if anybody hates the game, I feel like they're really trying strong to find reasons to hate it. It's ultimately a completely fine game. Alright. Trust me, that was hard for me to, like, really figure out. So, Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land. This is such a different game compared to everything that we've played so far. Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land is set in the Zelda world, but it has so little to do with actual Zelda or Link or anything to do with Hyrule in general. Tingle's game feels like a parody. And God, I don't know what to say about it. See, I find the game compelling in that the characters are all used pretty decently, and that they keep being brought up, keep being used for multiple quests. And overall, you kind of draw some kind of attachment to the characters. The bodyguard system, everything about it. It's a very quirky game. And I can tell that there's someone who is on the Zelda staff, probably the person behind the entire game of Zelda in general, who really liked Tingle, who fought the idea of playing as a failure of a man who's obsessed with money and women and being a fucking loser. Like, someone really finds that really enjoyable. And so they really wanted to make Tingle games. There's multiple here, being the Tingle balloon fight, although that's just balloon fight with Zelda themes on it, and the Too Much Tingle pack, which is a bunch of random tools like calculators and notepad and stuff all in Tingle form. But this was the first one that was a full game, and I am happy I got through it. There were times I really didn't like the controls and stuff, but that might have been the hardware thing, where I was playing on a thing that wasn't a DS, which obviously is going to change things. The whole thing, though, about the game is guessing, and I've never liked that. I implore you, if you ever play the game, play with a guide, because I don't know if this is absolutely true, but I recently opened the game up just to find out if it was. I did the Chico fairy doll quest and went to Chico's mother and went through that whole, how much do you think you deserve for finding my child's lost doll? And if you ask for too much, you get nothing, and immediately it cuts off. You don't get anything for it, and it moves on. I don't know if that's going to be the same for everything else in the game, where you save the guard's wife, or you find the daughter of the jeweler, and every time they ask you how much money you think you deserve for this as a reward. If every one of those ends up with you, if you overextend and ask for too much, and the game just says you don't get anything because you asked for too much, you were too greedy, that's insane. I understand that the game does give some sort of tells of like a character's facial expressions, being like, if you give them too little, they'll get super angry. If you give them just a little under, they'll have a very neutral face. If you get it basically on point, they'll still have a neutral face. And if you basically ask for very little or pay way too much, they'll have like a very vicious, happy face, like ecstatically maniacal kind of face, right? And that's kind of how you can gauge it, but you have to fail or succeed through failure, or failing through succeeding in order to see those. So then it comes off like, do you have to like save before you do anything? And then if you get asked a thing, like how much do you think you deserve, you just have to keep putting in inputs, loading up your save, putting in another input until you find the golden number, and then you can finally move on. That sounds horrible. So yeah, playing with a guide is absolutely what I think you need to do with this game, because it is not kind to those who go without. I'll say that. I hate the guessing game part of it, and that's a big part of it. So ultimately, I'm feeling it's a C tier. There are things to like about it, but the main gimmick of the game is just stressful. It's just stressful. And I don't think anybody I think you have to play with a guide in order to play this game without having to run into grinding. Because if you don't, you will have to grind. You will have to grind rupees constantly, and it will not be fun. Because the combat is boring and just like walk into enemies and get them all to run into you. Stuff like that. With like small things like, oh, you can use perfume on yourself so enemies will run into you and you'll be able to gather more enemies into one thing. That's a silly little thing. But no, it's not worth it, I don't think. Is it better than the CDI games? As funny as the CDI games are, the gameplay of these games is just it's just not good enough. I do think Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land does attempt to be a game and actually does have some good parts. I do like some characters in the game, particularly like the blacksmith's daughter, a lot of the kids in themselves, and I do like the progression of the story of Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land, in that you are effective. I mean, it's pretty blatantly obvious that the person who's you're giving money to is a scam artist who's just getting you to give them money for a fake place or a trick rupee land that is actually just like not a great place at all. It's pretty obvious. So yeah, I'm putting it there. I don't know how the next Tingle game is gonna be, but we'll eventually get to that. And we'll put it against it eventually. So next, Phantom Hourglass. Oh boy. It's hard to not immediately think about the controls of Phantom Hourglass, especially since Spirit Tracks had pretty much the same, although slightly altered parts. Phantom Hourglass basically gave up on combat, I feel, in around the midsection, where they realized that combat in this game is kind of not all that great. I love the map parts where you have to like map out certain things in order to figure out certain puzzles. I've always thought that was a really unique gimmick. Lineback is an actually fun character, although as much as I've like praised him in previous times I've played the games and whatnot, he isn't really that big of a character, is he? He kind of just is a person we rent a boat from, and he shows up in some cutscenes. Thanks for that, Marco. I wrote smut. Great, good for you. I'm talking about Zelda though, not schmut. But yeah, Lineback shows up in some cutscenes in the middle section, but honestly, he doesn't feel too connected to the main plot. Him showing up at the end and being essentially the guy that helps us. It's nice to have kind of like a male helper. Well, you know what? That's actually kind of weird. I don't know why I think of it like that. Because Elzo is male. The boat is male. Who else was? You a fake fan not going to play Link's crossbow training? No, Marika, I'm not planning on playing what was effectively a mini game created purely to showcase the Wii's ability to track its remotes. That's basically the entire existence of that game. I'm not planning on playing it. Or games that just can't be played at all. But yeah, effectively Phantom Hourglass, the movement around the map could be a bit awkward. You can't put the system down. You can't just like leave it and let the travel happen on its own. Kind of like you have to like constantly be aware of what's happening on screen because you've only got like 4 health points on your boat. Can't upgrade it. Can't get stronger boat. You have to just live with a boat that's barely that great. And if you get hit 4 times, go back to where you started. Tell us on how big each ZZZ agent's PP is when. Considering there's like 4 men in that game, that would be a very short list. Maybe 5. I am not going to be questioning the PP lengths. Unless you are reading some really strange online. Yeah, I had a feeling you'd mention that. But yeah, Phantom Hourglass controls are weird, but I don't dislike the game at all. I kind of come off of Phantom Hourglass thinking this game would be great if I was probably playing it on the original hardware, but even then it's kind of like a meh kind of game. I enjoyed it for what it was worth, but ultimately I don't think I'd ever play it again on my own. The ending is kind of a It's not great, is it? The fact that it ends with a, oh, you were on the boat this entire time. 10 minutes of sleeping, silly. That means everything that you experienced was a lie. Or was it? Because you see Line bent ship out in the distance when she... It's like just... It felt like they weren't committing with this game at all. It's kind of the most obnoxious kind of ending where it's like, this game could be canon if we decide to make it canon, but it could also not be if nobody likes it. I don't know. I've never liked that kind of ending. So yeah, ultimately this game is going into the lower sections somewhere. It's not bad. So I don't think it deserves C tier because I don't hate anything about it. And what I don't like can be kind of reasoned to be... I mean, it does have a kind of typical Zelda formula as well that I do enjoy. I think it should go at the top of B tier. Oh, come on, there we go. B for boobies. Sure. I don't think that game had any boobs at all, actually, thinking about it. I mean, Tetra technically was there, but she's basically as flat as a board, as a plank that she has to walk the plank. Get it? Yeah. Yeah. I also, you know what, that's perfect placement also because the hourglass gimmick, it's all right sometimes, but going through the same dungeon over and over again can be a bit obnoxious. Even if it makes itself easier after you get better items later on, I still don't enjoy having to go through the same rooms of instant killing enemies. No, I don't like that. I don't like stealth in Zelda most of the time. Usually because it involves just instantly losing and having to restart the area, which always sucks. Never mind, move it to C. I don't think it's a bad game. Although, after going through that thought, I do think the Oracle games are better. In terms of a Zelda progression. Alright. The final game, except, I guess, I could just give my general thoughts about Picross. I haven't played through it entirely. Hey, Sedani, I'm just going through the recent Zelda games I've played on stream, as well as this game, because I've always had this on my DS for like over 10 years. Oh, thanks for the resub.
Still intrigued to see your thoughts here.
Basically, like these are the last two games we're talking about because the rest down here are get away, man. Shows that we don't have actually that many Zelda games to get through, although I don't think the new Zelda game is on here. So that's hidden, but there's also like remakes here as well that aren't going to be part of it. I'm sure I'm going to be pissing a lot of people off with certain choices of where some of these games go. Since I know that like some of these games are people's like first playthroughs. Super excited about Balloon Trip of Love. I've heard about it. I've seen like Vinesauce Vinny play a bit of it. I know that it's less about becoming rich and it's more about getting romance. I'm just hoping that it's different from the original Tingle game. But yeah, Picross, it's a Picross game. If you don't know what Picross is, it's basically this Sudoku-esque kind of puzzle thing where you can map out a image out using numbers on a grid, essentially. It's a mini game-ish kind of game. It's C tier, I think. It's got no story. It's Twilight Princess. I do like Twilight Princess, but it's a mini game thing. It's a thing. That's basically as far as I can go with that one. But Spirit Tracks, we just got through Spirit Tracks. You'll notice that none of these games are ending up in E tier, where I would think that it's like absolutely terrible and there's nothing redeemable about it, right? That's why E tier is there, because I think that all of these games, even Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, has something enjoyable about it. But Spirit Tracks improved on Phantom Hourglass. It can't go below Phantom Hourglass. And I think the only thing I really suffered from Spirit Tracks, again with not using the original hardware, which isn't the game's fault, I can't really put in any kind of control problems or issues that I had there. It's more to do with the whole not being able to upgrade your train beyond getting more health, and the fact that your train is so slow and there's a lot of instant death situations, a lot of back and forth. Go over here to get me some supplies. Bring them back, but don't daddle around. They'll melt under the sunlight. Oh, hey, can you take me to the castle town? Be warned, if you don't blow the whistles when the signs tell you, I'm gonna get pissed. Although, thankfully, they give you like 5 points of like happiness, and if you go, and you can also regain happiness by doing the correct things, so that's not as big a deal. But it did get kind of tiring constantly dealing with the exact same threats over and over again. Shoot your cannon at the Mad Max Roadrunners. Shoot your cannon at the pirate ships. Shoot your cannon at the flying monsters. Shoot your cannon at the boulders that are on the tracks. It was always kind of a similar thing going on with the traveling around the world. And when it came to the instant death trains, it was simple. Don't go near the instant death trains. And while it did feel somewhat happy, I felt happy about being able to kill the trains in the final world of like the Dark Realm. That was at the end of the game. That's a big part. A lot of the upgrades and useful things that would help you with this game, they come in at the very end of the game. So it just, all of the rewards for doing the kind of obnoxious back and forth side quests is rewards that would make those side quests less obnoxious, but you've already done them, so it doesn't matter anymore. It's like, that's the kind of thoughts I have about it, right? But I still enjoyed this more than Phantom Hourglass, based on the fact that I enjoyed Zelda a whole lot more. This is the first Zelda game that has Zelda genuinely really likable, in that she's your companion character. She's she's got super mad personality. I love hanging around with Zelda. And the fact that it's made into kind of like a co-op game, even though it's still single player, where you have to control Zelda and have her do things in different phantom bodies, I thought that was a really unique concept, and I really liked that. I think this is a definite... I think this goes in A tier, even with my complaints about the getting around and side quests being a bit obnoxious. It's a lot of optional stuff, right? I shouldn't really blame the game for having its optional stuff being a little obnoxious. Is it better than Minish Cap, the original Zelda, and Majora's Mask? I don't think it's better than Majora's Mask by far. I love Spirit Tracks Zelda. It's got some bigger issues as far as Zelda games go, in my opinion, but the highs are really high for me. I genuinely did love Zelda's writing in the game, and I liked a lot of the Locomo characters. It's funny because I felt like the game has its big gimmick being around trains, right? But I never felt like it got obnoxious with that gimmick. It didn't feel like every character was, like, related to trains in some way or form. It just felt like, I don't know, like trains were just the fun part of the game. And I liked a lot of them. I guess that's another thing about Phantom Hourglass. I liked the way that both of these games always tried to do something new. Like using the closing of a DS screen and then opening it up back up in order to, like, get the map to imprint upon itself or something like that, right? It's cool. That kind of, like, out-the-box thinking. I always thought that was really interesting. I suppose what I'm saying is this is either above the original Zelda or below it, because I think it's better than Minish Cap. I think I do still prefer the original based on its longevity. And man, yeah, I think that's where we're at right now. I put it above the original Zelda, but that's where I land, and I can see why you prefer the OG. I have, like, stronger connections to the OG. Like, that's the first time I played Spirit Tracks. And I understand that some people, like, they started off with the DS games. And I like the DS games. I just think I prefer using other control setups. The stylus can be enjoyable to an extent, but I never really enjoyed the control of Link. So yeah, I think that's where we're stuck then with our Zelda playthroughs, because we've still got a bunch of other games to get through. One of the Skyward Swords, I can just put, I guess, HD down here for a moment. I don't know if I'm gonna play the original Wii or the upgraded Skyward Sword. Probably Switch's Skyward Sword. Yeah, I'm probably gonna play the HD one because I've got that. Triforce Heroes, I'm probably gonna play, but I don't know if I'm gonna complete it, because I've seen a lot of people online saying that it's excessively not fun for single player. Like, if you were playing with other people, it would be more enjoyable, but for single player, it's just tedious. That's what I saw, so I'll keep that in mind. The Hyrule Warrior games, I don't know which version I'm gonna play. Probably definitive. I've already, like, played the Hyrule Warrior games. But yeah. Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdoms, Cadence of Hyrule, Edge of Calamity. There's also one more here that's Echoes of Wisdom, I think. That's the new Zelda playthrough in, like, where you're playing the Link's Awakening version of the style of the game, but it's playing as Zelda during Link to the Past, in a way. That's what I think is there. Triforce Heroes is a multiplayer game, yeah. Right, so that's why I'm probably gonna play that at one point, but it's questionable whether I'm gonna complete it. It depends on whether or not it feels enough like Four Swords Adventures for me to get through it all. But yeah, that is where we're leaving off then. The next game is gonna be Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love. In fact, I can actually sort these out right now just to see what set of them are in. We'll see how it goes, because this one and Link to the Between Worlds are the last two Zelda games on the DS that I'd have to play. After Balloon Trip, it is Skyward Sword. Then it's Link Between Worlds. Then it's Hyrule Warriors. There. Then it's Triforce Heroes. Then it's Breath of the Wild. Then it's Cadence of Hyrule, which will be interesting. Hyrule Age of Calamity, which is another Hyrule Warriors game that I haven't played, so we'll see that. Tears of the Kingdom, and then Echoes of Wisdom. That is the stream schedule of Zelda games. Nice. All right, so we'll eventually pick up another ranking list, probably sometime after Breath of the Wild, maybe, since Breath of the Wild is going to be a long game, and so are some of these other ones too. So I might have to, like, that's why I've split it up there instead of, you know, trying to push it even further. Because the further on we get, the longer the games get, right? So we'll see you all there. I'll end this ranking here, and we'll pick it up another time. Take care and farewell.